Hi there, and welcome to everybody watching live on the This Is Ibrox network. It's the Wednesday warm-up with myself, Kyle McLean, as always. I've got a couple of fantastic guests on with me today. First of all, we've got Gus. How are you doing today, Gus?
I'm very well, thank you, Kyle. It's good to be back for the new season.
That's it. And as we were just talking about before we came on there, Ben obviously never got the memo to get the new away kit on. How are you doing today, Ben?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm glad to be back on, same as Gus for the start of the season.
Yeah, and just a special shout out to yourself from all the podcasters at This Is Ibrox. Just congratulations on the birth of your daughter. You are looking well, all things considering.
Thank you very much. I look well for having given birth a week ago, don't I?
Yeah. It's not bad. Did she have more hair than you? Yes or no? That's the question that we're all dying to know.
That's not difficult in fairness, but yes, she's a full head of hair actually.
Fantastic, man. Right, as always, look, we've got loads of stuff to talk about. There was a bit of news over the last couple of days that gathered pace. I wasn't sure how much I believed it, but Rangers announced today they have re-signed Leon Balogun. We will get the guys' thoughts on that. One of these ones that certainly split the support, so let us know your thoughts in the comments, guys, on that one. We'll just have a general defence and a chat on how the defence is shaping up for next season. It's a very, very defence central show, this. We have got chat of another centre-half still joining this summer. We'll get the guys' thoughts on Big John Souttar, seeing if he will be a starter next year at Rangers. I don't know if I know you guys have seen the Dujon Sterling presser there. I thought there was some really, really interesting stuff in that. So we'll dig into his comments. We'll discuss what I love calling the Dessers presser, and I hope he does many more of those. And we'll get the guys' thoughts and all the latest jazz surrounding Danilo and social media. And there might even be a wee bit of time to discuss Michael Beale's interview on RTV there as well. But as always, we'll start the Wednesday warm-up with a wee on this day. Even though it's the 12th today, we'll go back on the 11th of July. We'll start with you first of all, Ben. But Rangers signed Lee McCulloch for £2.2 million from Wigan. Went on to play 209 times for Rangers, scoring 52 goals, so a goal every 4 games, which is a lot higher than I thought it was. He's had quite the array of trophies at Rangers: 3 Scottish Premier Leagues, 1 Scottish League One, 1 Scottish Third Division, 2 Scottish Cups, and 3 Scottish League Cups. How do you remember Lee McCulloch's time at Rangers, Ben?
Well, first of all, when you were telling me we're doing on this day on the 12th of July, I was a wee bit worried about what you're going to come up with. So I'll go with Lee McCulloch happily. But yeah, no. He's a winner, is what I remember him as at Rangers, and leader. You know, he's a player that I remember. I think if I remember rightly, we tried to get him a couple of times in the January, and then ended up getting him in the summer, as far as I know. But yeah, he's good, versatile player. You know, added a lot of experience to the squad. And I think we probably got, well, in my opinion, I think we got more out of him than we expected us to do when we first brought him in.
Yeah. And obviously, I think it's really important that obviously that time in Rangers history in 2012, he was one of the guys that stuck around, and he'll forever be remembered for that, Ben.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I should have said that really, but no, absolutely. And it's possibly somebody that you could see having a role at the club again in the future in some capacity. You know, he showed us loyalty. He gets what the club is. I know that's a cliche, but he really does. And he's the type that you'd want your younger players to be learning about, or some of the foreign players to be learning from, you know, about the league, about Rangers.
Yeah, totally agree with what you've said there. I think he is a guy that we will certainly maybe see someday back at the club in a coaching capacity. And I know seeing his face on the, or more appropriately, seeing his teeth sitting on the bench for Hearts over the last couple of seasons. Stephen Forsyth here pops up and says that header v Leon. Funny enough, I think that's the second Wednesday in a row where I've been on where we've talked about that game v Leon. Right, Gus, this one for yourself. Maybe not. I never thought I would say this. It's certainly not as glamorous as Lee McCulloch, this one. But just on this day, on the 12th of July, Rangers sign Rabbi Matondo from Schalke 04 for around £3 million. He's been at Rangers for 1 season. When we were sort of discussing this in the group chat earlier on, I found it really hard to sort of pick out any, you know, memorable moments in his Rangers career so far. But just what have you made of Rabbi Matondo? Had a okay end to the season, and Do you think he's got a place in the squad and the team next year?
Well, I think you are right there. He has been very inconsistent. I mean, I can think of some glimpses that he's shown. I think back to Hearts away. I think we beat them 4-0 when he set up Cholak for, I think it was the second goal. He beat like 2 or 3 men and then played them in. St Johnstone at home, he got 2 assists. And then he did have that injury, mysterious injury. We don't really know what it was, but he was missing from about January to April. And then he got a fair amount of game time at the end of the season. But by that time, we weren't really playing with wingers, so it didn't really suit him playing in the kind of split striker role. And he's one of these players that I think he needs space, like a lot of space to run into, but you're not going to get that in Scotland, especially domestically. In terms of his place in the squad, I think it could be a useful kind of squad player for next season, especially in European games where there is that space, maybe even games at Celtic Park. But he's got a contract until 2026. He's still only 22. If a club from, say, the Championship comes in with about the same amount of money, 2-3 million, I think he would be away.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. I think at the time I was not convinced on this signing, and I'm still to be convinced, to be honest with you. I felt that why are Schalke signing a guy for 12 million a couple of years ago, and then they're willing to let him go for about a quarter of the value? A couple of comments here. James Quinn really telling us what he thinks about Matondo, says Matondo must go. And Hugo Bear here says, given money paid and transferring wages, Matondo looks poor value. And, really, really hard to disagree with either of those comments there. But listen, if he has to have a career and a future at Rangers, let's hope it's a good one. Right, we'll get into it. I think there's only one place to start today. We'll begin with, I was going to say it's a welcome news, but as per, it's split the Rangers supporters right down the middle here. But Rangers announced that they've made their 7th signing of the summer. I cannot believe that I'm saying that we've already, it's the 12th of July and we've made 7 signings already. I can't quite remember a summer like it. But we signed former JR Leon Balogun. Leon Balogun, on rejoining the club, he said, "I'm just excited to be back, to be honest. It's a bit unreal, but it's very real. So I am really happy to be back at Rangers. It feels like coming home. Since I have left, I've always felt a lot of appreciation and love from my friends I've made in Glasgow and around the club. And now that I'm back, it's nice to say the least. I know second is no option. I know what people are going to say very quickly if we are not performing. So it is time to get to work, put our best foot forward and make sure we get the results that we need." Ben, I'm going to start with you in this one. It's a really straightforward, simple question. What do you make of this signing? As I said, it's really split the support. What side do you lie on? Do you lie on that this is a good signing for cover, or do you see it as why we bringing back a guy that was surplus to requirements just a year ago?
Well, my initial when this was sort of rumoured, my initial opinion was, my opinion is that he was released at the right time, and I wouldn't have brought him back. I can understand the circumstances with Leon King and things. I can understand that it makes sense and why we've done it. But it's a no-brainer in terms of we need somebody we're not bringing him in to be a starter. We're not bringing him in to be playing. If we were bringing him in to be, even third choice, alarm bells would really be ringing. The fact that he's a fourth, it makes me think of the Gareth McCauley type signing from a few years ago. There is logic to it. He knows the club. He knows the manager. He can be relied upon. But it's not just him in isolation. It's a fact. If he was a fourth choice and you've got 3 defenders ahead of him that aren't necessarily going to be injury prone or out of form or question marks about Ben Davies and stuff, then I could sort of understand it a wee bit more. But the fact that Golson's had his worst injury hit season, you've got John Souttar who's looking great, but we're all waiting for that next injury really, and then Ben Davies, which all the indications were that he wasn't wanted at the club, and we don't know did he want to stay. That might not be true. He may be happy. The club might have always wanted to keep him, but it's concerning. It's a concerning position now more than it would have been, and should it be that the injury of a fourth choice young player, unproven really still, should really throw the club into this much sort of, not disarray is maybe a bit drastic a word, but it certainly has showed us to be weaker there than maybe we kind of first thought. Everybody's worried about the strikers, but it's a problem.
Yeah, totally agree with you there. Ben, I'm going to stick with you just on this one while you're talking about Balogun there. I've seen one school of thought on social media that says the name Lewis Mayo has been mentioned a lot. Obviously, he was on loan at Kilmarnock last year. A lot of people are saying, why don't we just integrate Mayo into the squad and just have him step up? What's your thoughts on that?
Haven't seen a lot of him, but all the indications I've had are that he's probably not going to make the grade. And at the end of the day, I would probably rather go with an experienced player like Leon Balogun, who's been there and done it for us, than a young player who it's okay if it's a young player like Leon King, who we really have high hopes for. But if it's a player that realistically isn't going to be a Rangers player, then it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Because you get into a situation, hopefully we don't, but you get into a situation where you have a couple of injuries, and it's bad enough having Leon King playing in the Champions League, but can you imagine Lewis Mayo playing in the Champions League this season? Yeah,
that's very true. Don't get me a PTSD on that again. Blue Nose John here says, good evening, Kyle, Gus and Ben. Don't worry, we'll forgive you for being a wee bit late for watching you use that. That's fair enough, but just want to give you a wee shout out there, John. Look, Gus, there's plenty of comments coming in about it. Stephen Selman here says, should never have been let go in the first place. RFC72 says, it's smart business, will be very cheap, and he's backup. And he's the backup's backup. That's almost like the Todd Cantwell's the assister of the assists part there, but rather Balogun at centre half than if he likes the likes of Lundstrom and Sands again. Kyle 1872, and I promise you this isn't my burner account. Sentimentality signing not good enough to be kept last year. Panic signing this year. And Barney, that's a fantastic picture of your dog there, Barney. He says Balogun is here to help out. The manager said about Leon Balogun's return. Gus, he said, Leon is a person that I have full trust in, both as a footballer and a man. He's extremely well liked by everyone inside the club, and we are very happy to have someone with his experience and leadership qualities rejoining our squad. Naturally, he will integrate back into the club very quickly, and he understands fully our way of working and our style of play. As a free agent, we were able to move very quickly so that he could join us here in Germany. It was really nice to see the reception he received from the players and the staff joining us here at the camp. Where do you sit in it all? Good signing, bad signing?
Well, as you've just said there, I can see why he's been brought in. It's the third time he's worked with Michael Beale. He knows the club. He loves the club, which is even better. And he does bring that experience. But in terms of my own personal opinion, I just find it a bit uninspiring, if I'm being honest. He's 35. He's injury prone. Like, last season at QPR, he only managed 16 appearances, just over 1,000 minutes. So even in that support centre-half role, is he going to be ready? Is he going to be available to come in? We don't really know. He hasn't managed over 20 games in a season since 2015-16, which I think's quite mental. But even when he was here before, he wasn't a guaranteed starter every week either. But yeah, I mean, once we know more about what the squad's going to look like next season, who's coming in and who's leaving, I might be okay with it, especially if we keep someone like Ben Davies. But if Ben Davies leaves and we only bring in one other centre-back, then I would be concerned. Aye.
Yeah, again, lots of comments. Darren Alley here says, love Big Balogun, but he hardly kicked the ball last season for QPR with injury, which basically says what you were saying there. Gus, another centre-back still needed for me. Callum Beattie here says, Balogun is experienced and strong, good in the air, especially in the opponent's box. Cheap, and he'll do a job, and he knows how lucky he is to be back. That's the thing about it. I think that nailing my colours to the mast, I think this is a good signing. I'll say it. In terms of, think how difficult it is to get people in. He's a guy that I'm sure he just had. Well, you saw in his interview, he said he didn't actually believe it was real at first, and then he had to sleep on it and go back the next day. I'm with you, Ben, and I'll be keen to get Gus's thoughts on this as well. But I don't want us playing in the Champions League if we get there with Sands and Leon King. You know, as hard as they tried, they were not up to that standard or that level. But do you think it's an experience like that, Gus, that's not scared the management team, but just said we should probably have some cover just in case?
No, I do understand that. We definitely want to avoid the centre-back crisis that we had last year. I'd like to avoid seeing John Lundstram at centre-back at all costs, I think. And, you know, I would have rather had Balogun instead of him. I'm of the opinion that he probably shouldn't have left last year, but I also think that we shouldn't be bringing him back now. I think you can believe both those things. Well, I certainly do anyway. But, yeah, I do understand it, but I think it would take a bit of time for me to kind of warm up to it, I think.
Yeah, no, that's... On you go, Ben.
Sorry, it just concerns me a wee bit in terms of, I understand we needed someone in quick and he's available and he wanted to be here, but in terms of, it concerns me in terms of the recruitment. You know, had we no list there that we could have gone and got someone, or even, I know we don't like bringing in people on loan, but would there not be somebody, a younger centre half we could bring on loan with a view to signing next summer as a more permanent, and it's more stability for the club long term, rather than just go into that. I mean, we've been ruthless lately. We've got rid of, you know, like Arfield and things who questionably could have got another contract. We've been ruthless, so we've showed the club wants to move on from these players and move on from 55, and now we're going back to it. I understand circumstances sort of dictated a little bit, but still.
Yeah, that's it. Kyle 1872 here again says with you exactly, where's this list of players we keep apparently? Like I said, I totally get that point. In terms of the 7 signings that we've made so far, he's probably the most uninspiring, but I think we've done it out of necessity and ease. And we're about to come on to talk about Leon King and what's happened there. But for me, I think that the fact that Leon King's obviously had this injury, when did we get in Germany? Monday? And we've already sorted out cover for him. That's the sort of take that I have on it. Look, Ben, we've just talked about Leon King there. Rangers in their official Twitter said Rangers can confirm defender Leon King suffered a contact injury to his ankle at the club's pre-season training camp in Germany on Monday, which will rule him out for a significant period of time. Leon is being looked after by the club's medical staff, and a further update will follow in due course. Everyone at the club wishes Leon a speedy recovery, as I'm sure all the supporters do that are watching this. How big a blow is it to Rangers to have an injury? And I mean, reading between the lines in terms of, you know, Beale's interview, which we'll come on to later, and this statement about it being an impact injury, I think we can assume it's maybe a break, maybe a dislocation, but it certainly sounds like a serious injury that he will be out for with us for a significant amount of time. Will this impact Rangers greatly? And just from a personal point of view, how sad are you to see a young player getting a really bad injury like this at quite a critical time in his development?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gutted for him firstly. You know, I think he did relatively well given being, you know, rabbit thrown into the headlights last year. And you know, he was only going to grow from that experience, and to now lose, you know, to be out for a considerable amount of time. And it was concerning to hear Michael Beale even in his interview using the word potential break. You know, so it could be quite a while. I don't think there's a whole lot of difference now in terms of, I think Leon Balogun and Leon King, I think obviously there's more legs and stuff in King, but I think Leon Balogun as a player, if fit and available, will be able to cover that role, but it's if fit and available is the issue. So I don't think in the immediate is going to be I don't think it's going to hurt us massively in the immediate. It's not like he's a starting player. It's not like he was even going to be, you know, your third choice. But I think it's in terms of his development that it could hurt. It could hurt him, which could hurt us. I know that they're being talked about interest in him. You know, with us always talking about the player trading model. So that this could be. It's certainly going to hurt his development. He's not going to be training. He's not going to be playing football. Whether his development, there was many that would say that he'd be better developed by going out on loan this season. You know, so it's cutting his options of playing football, whether that is with us, whether that's training with us, or whether that's out on loan. So I think it's more in the long term in terms of will it affect him as a player. hopefully not, and hopefully it's just something that, injuries happen and he'll come back stronger from it. But yeah, I'm disappointed for him.
That's it exactly. I think the one thing we can say about it, at least if he'll be getting treatment, and I'm sure if it is as bad as we all fear it is before it's officially confirmed, that maybe looking at positives from it, at least they'll have a guy like Goldson there beside him for a small bit of it, to talk him through. And I mean, it's no secret that we had a lot of injuries in our squad last year, so hopefully the more experienced players will be able to rally around them. And yeah, I thought he did relatively well for his age, Leon King, last year, and a guy I hope to see playing for Rangers in the future. So hopefully he's got a speedy recovery. Look, Gus, we'll come on to you next, and we will talk about a guy who was injured. Another centre half for Rangers was injured a lot for a long period last year. A guy who really impressed towards the latter stages of the season. But Dujon Sterling had a wee pre-season interview with Rangers TV. I think he said some really interesting comments in there. He said, "For me, it's the first time in a couple of years that I'll have had a proper pre-season where I'm feeling fit and 100%. It gives you a base for the rest of the season. You're not catching up with the lads, feeling like you're behind. You're right on it. So this next week or two will give me a great base to hopefully have an injury-free season. So I'm looking forward to it." How important is it to have a guy like Dujon Sterling in and around the squad, first of all, Gus? And do you see him as our starting centre half, be it in a duo or a trio next season?
Well, first of all, I love Dujon Sterling, and I do hope he's our second choice centre back next season. But ultimately, it is down to his injury and his fitness issues that he's had. If he's over them, then yeah, I would like to see him in the starting 11. The way he bounced back from the Celtic game, I thought was fantastic. And he adds a lot to the team, the way he carries out the ball from the back, and he can split the defence with the line splitting passes. But I do think he is better playing as a right-sided centre-back, where obviously Connor Goldson plays just now. And I don't think he's quite going to replace Goldson yet, unless they start playing a back three, which I think we will see a lot more of this season. And we know Beale likes to have that balance of a right and a left footer as his centre backs. The centre backs that we've been linked with, like Austin Trusty and Jonathan Panzo, they're all left footed. So that could affect his availability of minutes next season. But yeah, I love him. I'd love him to be in the starting 11. I do think he is better than Ben Davies. So yeah, even if he's on the left-hand side, I would like to see him start the majority of the games anyway.
There we go, our very own Reese, and hi to you there, Reese. He gives us a lovely diagram here, or equation, I suppose, in terms of what he feels the hierarchy should be in terms of centre halves. It should be 100%. It says it goes Goldson, Souttar, Davies, Balogun in that hierarchy. I'm surprised he's not got John Lundstrom in there, to be fair. So Ben, it's a similar question for yourself, and the rest of that interview, and I thought it was a really fantastic interview that Dujon Sterling gave to RTV. By the way, this pod is very interview centric, so be prepared for me butchering a lot of quotes tonight. But in the second part of the interview, he said everyone is really hungry. When there are a number of new boys that come in, everyone automatically has got to fight for their shirt. It's always been the case at Rangers, but even more so now with the amount of quality that has been brought in. And I think everyone is aware of that. There are only 11 jerseys for the first game of the season, and everyone is going to be fighting for it. And that can only be a good thing going forward. I'll ask you a very similar question to Gus. Is or should Dujon Sterling be? And I feel like we should have a soundboard here. If he's fit, does he make the starting 11 for Rangers? And albeit, and I said, given that we've signed Balogun, I think we will be going into a back three next year. But what do you think? Would you be starting Souttar?
Without a shadow of a doubt, he starts for me. He played well towards the end of the season. That one mistake we all know about, but as you said, or Gus said, he bounced back well from it. I was starting to see the John Souttar that we saw the cup final against us the end of the previous season, which I thought was a sensational performance. I think he's a great centre half. I think he's good on the ball. I think he's strong. I think he's got leadership qualities in there. It's the fitness, but you know, if he's fit, it's his shirt to lose at this minute in time. To me, I'm not one of these that absolutely hates Ben Davies or anything like that, but he's quite a distance ahead of Ben Davies for me. Just to the team in general, I feel more secure defensively. I like him on the ball. Ben Davies isn't bad on the ball either, like, to be fair. But no, I just think he's a good player to have in there in terms of when you've got the likes of Tav trying to get forward and things like that, and even with Ridvan still learning the game in our country, I feel that he's an important player in there, just in terms of strength, in terms of, you know, he works well. The thing is that he's been able to work well with Goulson. He's also been able to look good himself without Goulson there, which a lot of centre halves seem to fall apart when they're not playing with Goulson. So no, as long as he is fit at this minute in time, particularly with the ones that we have at the club, there's no question that he should be a starter. Whether we bring in someone better, I'd be surprised at this minute in time. But you know, that's obviously a good thing if we manage to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think the only thing I would add to that in terms of, I think you've hit the nail on the head in terms of John Souttar's leadership qualities. I'm no Ben Davies hater as well, to be honest with you, Ben. But I think I don't have the stats to hand in terms of tackles made and interceptions and all that jazz. But just in the eye test, he just looks more solid, and I just felt him more solid. Not to mention, I think that a goal against your biggest rivals at home, a fantastic goal, something that I think that we've been severely lacking is goals from set pieces. That was fantastic. And the other thing is Ranger passing is right up there. I dare I say it, he may even be better at Goulson than for distribution. I just love that. What was it, that phrase that Ali McCoy said once? Was it that there was a ball straight out the 1 o'clock gun? And I think that he's got that in his locker and more. Again, quite a few comments coming in here. Callum Beattie here says, suspect Beale might be flirting with the idea of Dujon Sterling at centre-back position. To be honest, that's certainly something I think we'll come on to later on. Thomas H here says, hopefully Davies and Souttar play well enough to keep Goulson out. I think that's a very interesting take there. Hugo Bayer here says, I would play Souttar in the big games. He's a good defender, can be rested in lesser games. Again, might be a tactic that Rangers use next year, given that the squad size that we have. But Gus, I'll come on to you for the next wee point here. Again, we're nearly half an hour into this podcast and we are still talking about centre half. So that's how you know when I've been in charge of an agenda and a podcast, when all we're talking about is the defence. But you touched on it a wee bit in terms of mentioning Panzo and Trusty, both being sort of left-sided centre halves. I think our very own Ross had a wee comment somewhere. Let me bring that up. He said, I think it's better to really assess Balogun signing at the end of the window. I'm certain we will bring in 2 centre backs. I don't know if Ross means we'll bring in another centre back as well as Balogun, or we're going to bring in another 2 centre backs. But we know that Panzo seems to be the one that's linked at the minute. I know the 4th official on their official Twitter had, that we were still very much in the running, discussions going on. We know that he was on loan at Coventry last year, having had a pretty good season there. But can you see us signing another centre half, Gus?
I think we absolutely need to, yeah. If Panzo's that guy, I don't really know. He did have a good season last year. I do have to be honest though, the only time I've really seen him is when he came on in the playoff final, and he made that mistake that let the playoff final go. That was not very good. But yeah, if he is that guy, then yeah, I'll fully support him. But we can't be going in with Leon Balogun, I think, is one of the 4 that are going to be starting the majority of games. Definitely someone like Panzo or Austin Trusty should be coming in to fill that role.
Yeah, I agree with you. And what do you think? And I'll ask you as well, because I know you're interested, certainly a lot more interested than myself in terms of the tactics and formations and all that side of things. You know what? Listen, you know what I'm going to ask you. Can you see us going to a back 3 next year?
I can. Well, At some points, I think, mainly for European games, I think in domestic games against teams at Ibrox that are going to sit in, park the bus, play a low block, I don't think we'll be seeing a back three at all, because there's just no need for having that many defenders back as much as that. But I think in Europe, in the tougher games, we'll be seeing a lot more three at the back. And I think Dujon Sterling, he's quite a good profile to have. He can play as one of the wide centre backs, as one of the wing backs, and he can play on both sides. So I think that is one of the reasons why he's been brought in. And we have been trialling it late into games when games have already been won domestically. So I do think we will see it a lot more next season.
Yeah. And Ben, I'll come to you in the next wee point here. If we look at all the centre halves we've got Goldson out. We'll see he's progressing nicely, as Beale touched on. We'll come on to that later. We've got John Souttar, who seems to be fit and firing, Ben Davies, Leon Balogun, and Leon King. Obviously, two of those guys have got injuries. King out for a long time. We know that Lundstrom can cover at centre half. Is there a need for us to go out and get another centre half, or do you think, would you be quite happy with that roster?
No, I wouldn't be happy with that going into the season, particularly with Champions League qualifiers being so early into the season. No, I think we need another one. I think that Davies will go. I still do, and I think he'll be replaced. But no, I just think I'd be happy with that. It always comes back to this injury situation. I'd be happy with that on paper, but if we did get an injury to John Souttar or something like that, then where are we going into the Champions League qualifier with potentially Balogun and Davies, because Goldson may not be ready? Would you want to be going into the Champions League qualifier with those two centre backs? No, I don't think. So no, I think we need someone else. Although if we're kind of looking at the Champions League qualifiers, we need to get someone in, sharpish if they're going to be playing with a team and things like that, and be ready for that. So, you'd like to see some movement on it soon. But no, I think we need a little bit more in there, definitely.
Yeah, and this is me being told that I'll stop mentioning Lundstrom as a potential centre back, because as Hugo Bear just definitely says, Lundstrom is not a centre back. That one game versus Borussia Dortmund that he did quite well in after we switched from the back five to the back four. I maybe need to let that go, but who's going to let a game that was that good let go? But listen, still on the defence here, Gus. Don't worry, we will not be moving away from defenders for a while yet. But we had another defender in, or it was an embargoed presser that was released today at about 12 o'clock from Dujon Sterling. I remember talking to Ross Chalmers of this podcast, who was fortunate enough to be there for This Is Ibrox, and he said this was the one that he was sort of looking forward to being out in the wider world, because he was so fiery and het up for this one. And watching it back, it was quite a fascinating interview, I thought. The first comment that I'd like to touch on that he said was, and it was the very first thing he was asked about, where do you see him playing, how's your style and stuff like that. But he said a lot of defenders now, right backs, left backs, they get judged on their stats up the pitch, but defensively they are not great. So I like to do my defending, win my one-to-one battles, and when the chance arrives to go forward, do that and help the team, but knowing that my teammates and manager has a trust in me to be able to defend. I don't play centre-back, I play right-back or left-back. I can fill in at centre-back, but I'm happy to, but I wouldn't say that's my strength, playing centre-back. And right on cue, James Glasgow's comments, he says, according to Sterling, he's not a centre-back. So in case anybody didn't know it, he's definitely not a centre-back. So, Gus, first of all, what rather than, you touched a wee bit on it earlier on about Dujon Sterling having the profile of player to come into the squad. I'll come on to that later. I want to know your thoughts on these comments, because they seem, you looking behind it, they seem pretty targeted, I think, and I think it's a bold move for a player coming out and not calling out the captain straight away, but it's nice to see somebody with a bit of fire in their belly.
No, I really liked it. I don't think it was necessarily a dig just at Tav. I mean, he is right. A lot of fullbacks get judged for more their attacking output than their defensive output. So, I mean, look at like Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's the exact same. It's not just Tavernier, but having having someone like him that wants to defend first rather than attack, I think is very refreshing to have in the squad, because he's just completely different to anyone else we have in the full-back areas. And I think in tougher games, when you're playing against the likes of Mo Salah that we did last year, if we had someone like Dujon Sterling to maybe man mark him, we maybe would have got on a lot better. But yeah, I really liked his comments, especially the ones about his mentality as well.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. Darren Alley here says, Big Dujon will do for me, a defender who loves defending. And Kyle 1872 here says, good on Sterling. Ben, same thing to you. I mean, where do you sit on this? I saw some people that said maybe it was a bit disrespectful to the captain, to Tav, coming out and saying that, given he has been here for what feels like forever now. He's the captain of the squad. Obviously, he's led us in some of our most memorable games over the last 10 years. Is it a good thing that a player's coming in and, without directly referencing him, maybe calling him out a wee bit and being a bit sort of brash in there?
I think it's great. I think it's exactly what Tav needs. Tav's been brilliant. I love Tav. Like, I'm not one of the ones that's his critic, but he's had no competition. When's the last time he's had somebody pushing him other than when Nathan Patterson for a short while? But he needs somebody that's coming up there, and if the defensive element is what Sterling's good at, he knows that. He's playing to his own strengths, and why not? It's confident. We want to be signing players that there's no point in us signing players that like maybe the likes of Sukowski that are coming in and probably know right well they're never going to play. What's the point? It's waste of wage, waste of time. And maybe this is how we get the best out of Tav again, which we didn't see last season. So at the end of the day, this is what you want. You want people coming in. You want them pushing their teammates, trying to get that shirt. And the important thing is, we can all talk a game and want the shirt, but to have a realistic chance of getting it, and to be encouraged. So no, I'm really pleased with it. I think it's really good, and to have someone defensive, to be for certain games to change it out. Tav will still start. Tav should be the starting right back. There's no doubt about that for me. But to have somebody that is focused on the defence and could maybe stop a local football team from coming in at the back post and scoring against us, I can't see that again. So. It's a good thing. It's good to have variety in your team. If you've got Tav, if you want to be a bit more attacking, but if you're up in a game or a European game or something and you want to be that little bit more defensive, or as Gus said, man mark players, it's good to have that variety within the squad.
Yeah, totally agree with you both on that one. I think it will be fascinating just having a different option at right back, and something that was a wee quote. It said here, he said, it's about competing together, but I'm not just tied down to one role. I can play many roles, so I don't fear Tav being the captain. It's about competition, and I think that's a real important comment there. We've all heard the players when they've come in and done their first press conferences or their welcome to the club interviews, and every single one of them has mentioned this Beale presentation that he had, and I for me it was, I think, the biggest criticism of the squad, certainly at the start of the year last year, was that, and Tav in particular, was it did not matter how badly he played the next game regardless. And I think that if he has a slip up here, I think Sterling will go straight into that squad. Again, a couple of comments. Thomas H here says, Tav defending is an open play isn't as bad as Barisic, but at set pieces he's just as bad. Yeah, but there's another wee comment here that I want to bring up from Jim Backs. Gus, it says Sterling for European games. What do you think about that comment in terms of just keeping him for maybe something slightly different? And if Sterling's playing at right back, left back, whatever, so say he's playing at right back, do you think Tav will be rested, or do you think he would be pushed a bit further forward, or is this just a scenario you can't really see happening?
Well, the only way I could really see them both on the park is if Sterling's maybe playing at left back or as the wide right centre back, with Tavernier playing the right wing back in a back five. But in terms of the European games, that is when I would probably expect to see Sterling most, playing as a right back. As I said, playing against like the likes of Mo Salah that we did last year, even Kvaratskhelia last year at Napoli. If we had someone maybe a bit more defensively sound, we maybe could have got on a wee bit better, but that's, who knows. But yeah, I definitely think we will see him more as a natural right back in the European games.
Yeah, I agreed with you there. And Ben, just before we move on to the next aspect, and we leave Dujon Sterling alone, but what do you make of his comments in terms of the competition and stuff like that? Is that something that as I've sort of alluded to before, have we been lacking that? Are you happy that they're well, we could fill, I think, 3 squads of 11s at this point?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt we need to trim the squad, but at the end of the day, we haven't had competition. You could have named the majority of the team for the last couple of seasons, maybe more than a couple of seasons. Last season, you could argue that if we weren't using Robbie McCrory, we didn't have any goalkeepers really competition-wise. I mean, McLaughlin's not good enough, and McGregor probably should retire the season early. And then you've got Tav guaranteed to play at right back. We weren't sure on Ridvan, and he was injured a lot, so you'd no competition there. Golson was guaranteed to start. Kent was going to start with no competition up front. So the squad needed competition, all around, for the likes of injuries, but also for to get the best out of players. If players, if the likes of Morelos, for example, knew he wasn't going to play whether he ran or he didn't run, he knew he was going to play. Then you're not going to get the best out of him. You should, in theory, be getting the best. Your players should be given their all, but it doesn't always work like that, does it? So, the competition is needed for any successful team.
Yeah, I think it's a shock horror, an opinion that split the Rangers support here in terms of what Jim Back said there. Hugo Bear here comes up and says it's horses for courses. Captain Tav plays too many games, and Kyle 1872 he says, give me hungry, energetic, swashbuckling players. What a word that is. I think I might steal that for next podcast as well. But players like Sterling any day. The others are tired and failed over many a season. Again, it's not hard to disagree with that, but I can certainly see where you're coming from. But look, Ben, I'll stick with you on the next point here. Got another interview to talk about, and it was this time Michael Beale on RTV. By the way, I'm thrilled with the amount of interviews because I'm normally kicking my pants that I never think we'll get to the hour mark, and every time I'm like, oh, that's us at the hour mark, I'll need to wrap the podcast up. But yeah, so it's Michael Beale, and it was really good to hear from him. Again, I feel like it's been a while since I've heard from Michael Beale, but we'll just digest some of the comments they've got. We'll start with, he was really pleased with what I've seen on the pitch. Obviously, a lot of tired legs with people doing over 40k weeks. I'm assuming that's 40 kilometers and running. The football predominantly in the morning with some safe running, but hard running in the afternoon. Lots of time for meetings, 1-to-1 meetings and units, and all the staff having real quality time with all of the players. Now, I found that a fascinating comment. I also found that, I don't know if you managed to catch Jack Addy's interview as well, from a couple of days ago, and they both referenced this. This seems to be, again, Michael Beale is totally changing the way that from Van Bronckhorst, it just seems like a almost directly opposing style. I think the Van Bronckhorst era was very, it's my way. If you remember that famous Roy Mackay quote, the tricks are for the circus, when he said it to Kent when he did one a silly wee thing in training. I think this seems much more of a collaborative effort with the players, and they really seem to be sort of listening to what the players need and really honing in on their needs this time. What do you make of that in this sort of next phase 2 of Beale's culture change at Rangers?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just confirmation bias, because we're basically all have been hearing pre-season wasn't what it should have been last year, and now I don't know. Also, it seems to me that the content has been upped, and I could be wrong. It's if I don't remember last year as much, but it seems we're seeing more, we're hearing more. But it seems, take that aside, that everything is much more, I don't want to say professional, but it almost seems like it is. It's more organized. It's more, there's a purpose to everything. We felt that the players weren't fit enough. He said as much when he came in to the job. And they're putting it in on the running, but they're also doing the ball work. The fact that they're doing meetings, I don't know. Again, this could have been happening before, but the fact that they're doing meetings as units, defensively, midfield, I think that's good. Especially when you're bringing in so many players, as you say. We've brought in 7 plus the 2 in January. So, to be able to bring them in to get to know their teammates and how we're going to play, I think it's all very, very good. I think it's been quite insightful, some of the stuff, apart from maybe the golf buggy stuff. But that's maybe to someone's taste, not for me. I think the whole staff there seems to be a togetherness that there needs to be if we're going to be successful together. So I'm really encouraged so far. There's more to come, but I think we're moving in the right direction.
That's it exactly. I mean, you hear all the sort of management staff, especially when they're coming up and talking about it. There's one word, and it's we're all aligned. You hear it in every, whenever the players are speaking, whenever any of the management team speaking, it's always we're all aligned, and that's something really good to see. And I totally agree with you in terms of, we're maybe going back to what it was like before under that. Because if you remember under the Gerrard era, what was the word? Was it ruthless or relentless? That you heard it all the blinking time, and I certainly think that we're going to go back there. But look, lots of comments coming in here, Gus. Before we move on to the next week quote, Hugo Bear, it's a really simple one. I think we can all get behind this. I like Beale. I think we all do. I think we'll like him even more if he brings us a couple of trophies next season. But Paul McGarrigle here, I think this is a fantastic quote, and I'll be really keen to get your thoughts on this. It says Beale is going pre-55 season with fitness. It's really hard to disagree with that. I think again, massive criticism towards the team. I think when Beale came in towards the latter half of the season, we did look a lot fitter. But it's fair enough, especially with the amount of running videos that the club's punting out at the minute. But is this important, Gus, that we get back to a level of fitness that is much better than everybody else in the league, basically?
Definitely, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why we won that league title, was we could just keep going and going and going, and we would run over teams and we just would never stop. And I think the word relentless, he did use that a lot, and I think he was right, because you had to be. But yeah, we need to get back to those kind of levels, because last season under Van Bronckhorst we didn't look fit at all, and I think Michael Beale knows that. So getting back to those levels is very, very important, I think.
Yeah. And look, there's a couple of comments here. Kyle Eaton says he's going back to basics, fitter and bigger players than the rest of the SPL. Win the fight first, then play. Again, fantastic comment from yourself, Kyle. And Paul McGarrigle, another good comment here, says the players had an input into pre-season training. They want the energy and the fitness to go 3 120-minute games in a row. And yeah, I think that it's so clear. You can see that from all the preseason stuff. It's been really fascinating. I've really enjoyed watching loads of the stuff. But look, Gus, I'll come to you here in the next wee comment that Michael Beale here said. Beale discusses the aforementioned Sterling, and he discusses some of the injured players and gives us updates on them that are some of these I wasn't expecting. He said Goldson's really progressing well. If I remember correctly, I think he'll be back maybe 3-4 weeks into the season. Was it 10 weeks when he picked up his injury? So I think he'll be back 3-4 weeks into injury. It's good to hear there's no setbacks there. Tom Lawrence, and he said he's ready to rejoin the team once we are home. So I'm assuming that means he's going into full contact with a ball at his feet. And the other one that he mentioned was Roof with his 2 sessions under his belt. I've literally just used this comment so I can say that's Stock Waller already working his magic. But in all seriousness, how important is it having guys like this back? Roof especially, because again, we can insert the soundboard here. If he's fit, he's the best striker finisher at the club. And Tom Lawrence as well. I was a bit surprised to hear that he would be back. What's your thoughts on Tom Lawrence integrating into this team?
Well, I'm very excited to see what Tom Lawrence can bring next season, because I think before his injury, he was one of our best players last season, and he was impacting games very well.
Yeah.
I don't want to use the cliche, he'll be like a new signing, but I think he kind of will. And it's a position that we've got a lot of competition for, so he's going to have to fight for his position as well. But in terms of Kemar Roof as well, he finally went for that operation, so you would hope that his injury worries are behind him, because I think he still could have a part to play next season as well.
Yeah, it will be very, very, very interesting to see him. I was a bit gutted when Lawrence was injured, and every time I talk about Lawrence, I can hear that liver puddling twang behind me going, we should have used. We've got 5 subs. We should have used them. And you know what? I totally agree with JB on that one. Reese here says, and it made me laugh, this comment last week as well. He said, Kamar Roof is Santa because you never see him. And Paul McGarrigle here says, Roof's hip injury could have been the reason for his injury. Now he's had it. Let's see what he does. Totally agree with that one. Oh, there's lots of Roof comments coming in here. Will Roof even still stay fit until the 18th? Yeah, we'll swiftly move on for that. I feel like there's been a lot of pods where we've discussed a lot of content about Kamar Roof coming back from injury. But look, we're sort of nearing towards the end of the pod here, but there's still a good couple of things to talk about. I want to talk about the Dessers presser that was on was it yesterday, Ben, I believe, and I thought it was a really good press conference that was out there. There's one question I'll come to you on. He was asked, last season was a big disappointment. Do you believe that you've had the characteristics to embrace this new challenge? I'm at a good age. 28 is the perfect age when you are physically still at the top level and you've gained experience from the past years. It's the perfect time to play for trophies and hopefully win some trophies. The mentality of Rangers is clearly present in this team and I want to be a part of that. I think I can bring some things, not only football-wise, but mentality-wise to the dressing room. I think he talked about having won the cup in Holland. But, I mean, this guy, I mean, what have you made of Cyriel Dessers so far? And what did you make on this this sort of press conference? Because I thought it was fantastic, and all the noises that this guy's making, I cannot wait to see this guy pulling on a blue jersey, especially at Ibrox.
My first point was he related to Michael Beale, because he can really talk, you know. You know, if he plays as well as he talks, you know, he really came across very, very well. You know, I think the questions on the likes of last season being a bad season, he's going to be playing a totally different. You know, last season he was playing basically what most of our opponents will be, sitting in and you know, trying to keep a score down as such or grab a point. Whereas now he's going to be playing in an attacking team, all being well, and taking the game to teams and having far more chances. So, you know, I was a bit worried by his goal return and his records and stuff, but you know, he has talked very, very well. He seems to really talk up the club every time I've heard him speaking. Anyway, he's talking about the club, the stadium, the fans, and he seems to be really, really excited actually, and wanting to embrace this opportunity. It's a great opportunity. You know, at the end of the day, he's played in some good leagues and stuff, but you know, he has come from a poor season, and he's now getting to a club that could be in the Champions League. So you know, it's a good move for him. I'm encouraged by him. I really am. I think he'll fit in very well. And the fact, you know, one of the bonuses from Balogun coming in, going back to that, I know we're back on defenders, but one of the things is he mentioned that he had talked to him from the international squad and stuff, and so he's already got somebody in there that he knows, and will be able to have a friendship and sort of, you know, will integrate him pretty well into the squad. So I thought it was a really good interview. You know, you can tell, I think he said he'd been a lawyer, and you can tell, you know, he's very articulate. So no, I'm encouraged.
Yeah, likewise. I said I thought that all the stuff that he's done so far, even the behind the scenes stuff at RTV, was a fantastic watch and a fantastic insight to him as well. And I think that, you know, if he backs up what he's saying, he will be a great success at Rangers. Look, Gus, I'll come to you in the next question that I thought was really interesting that he was asked in that press conference. He was asked, what else can you bring aside from goals? And he said, I don't have a target regarding goals. I have targets regarding team achievements, but of course I can offer more than goals. I think I've shown that in the last years. I can be important off the ball and pressing the other team and receiving balls high up the pitch and relaunching the attack. When we have the ball, I can do multiple things. Play with the back to goal, short combinations. I can go deep, but I think I'm best when facing the goal. These are attributes that can benefit the team. I mean, it's good to have a guy this confident coming into the squad here, Gus. And out of all the new signings and whoever sort of remained at Rangers, who can you see him linking up with the best, and where do you see sort of some of the relationships flourishing? What players do you think will work well with Dessers?
Well, I actually think a front two of Dessers and Lammers would be pretty good. You know, I've watched a bit of both of them, and I think Lammers, he really suits that split striker role as the kind of guy who's operating on the kind of outside of the box, getting to the byline and cutting the ball back. He was really good at that. And Dessers should be there to score all the goals. I mean, he said in the press conference himself that he's confident that he can replace Alfredo Morelos. And I really hope he does. But the pressure will be on him from the off, especially after the fee that we've paid for him. But after watching a bit of Dessers, I am confident that he will score goals in Scotland. He maybe didn't last season in the relegation battle with Cremonense, but I think in Scotland, especially domestically, I think he'll do fine.
Yeah, and while we're on that, I'll bring this up. Some of the media questions were dreadful, bringing up Neil Lennon and that. It was so odd. And then the other one about do you know who Todd Cantwell's favourite journalist was? Or maybe
what did I expect him to say to that?
Utterly bizarre stuff. Yeah, I totally agree with that. There has been some odd questions lately. You bring me on to my next point quite nicely there, Gus. I'll stick with you just on this one. There was a bit of social media speculation. There was a post, I think it said something like, Rangers want Danilo wants Rangers, make it happen. And then the man himself popped up and like said post. What's your thoughts on Rangers bringing in another striker? I mean, I think he'll be an outlay by all accounts of about €5 million. Can you see him linking up well with Dessers if we do bring him in? I know you said that because I was asked that question in the presser. Dessers, do you can you play in a front two, or do you prefer playing in a front two, or can you prefer playing in a like a three? And he basically said whatever, but. What do you think about that? Especially because Danilo, I think, he scored the second goal in his second game for Feyenoord in pre-season, so he's fairly putting the zeros on the end of his price tag. But would you be happy with a guy like Danilo coming in and linking up with Dessers?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he looks like he can play in a front two as well, Danilo. He looks like he can play as one of the kind of runners, like how Sima or Matondo would normally play, because he's got pace and he's got he's agile and he can get balls into the box, but he can also score goals. So I think we will see a lot of variation in the front two or front three this season, because we've got a lot of options now. I mean, even the likes of Sam Lammers, you can probably drop a bit deeper. We've got Sima. We can also try and put in wingers. But yeah, I don't know if the social media stuff was real. I don't know if I don't know if it was real or not. You can maybe let me know. But
yeah,
if so, then yeah, I'd love it. Especially just having a Brazilian striker at Ibrox. I mean, how exciting is that?
Yeah, 100,000,000%. There's definitely a joke in there somewhere, Gus, but I won't make it. That would be very childish of me. But Ben, look, I'll come to you here on the last sort of comment. Callum C, and I see this. There was a lot of chat about Kamara going today. Rumoured fees again for about £5 million for that one. We know he's been linked with Besiktas in Turkey and Leeds, which kind of surprised me a wee bit. But I mean, if a bid comes in for anything above sort of 3-4 million from Leeds, I think he'll be okay. But would you see Danilo as a good way to reinvest that money in the squad?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think regardless of who goes, I would like to see Danilo coming in. To be honest, he had me a Brazilian, but I think we need the options. I think it also would take some of the pressure off Dessers in terms of him not being the only one, so that he's not relied upon every single game. I still think Cholak will probably go as well. So I think he'd be a good signing. I think he would link well with the players. I'm quite excited for Sima as well. I think they'll work together, and I think they'll be interchangeable. And with Lammers there as well, being able to, as Gus said, he can drop deep, but he looks capable of playing up there too if he needs to, or playing off the striker. So I think Danilo would be kind of the final piece of the jigsaw up there in terms of attacking. We lost quite a few options up there, and I think this would be good just to sort of put it all together as such. Him Cifuentes and a centre back, and I'll be pretty happy.
Yeah, that's it. We've got here RFC 72 says it's smart business, will be very cheap. That's the wrong comment I brought up there. Sorry, RSC72. You had another good one. 2 good comments. There we go. Raskin, Cifuentes, Cantwell, Lammers, and then Dessers and Danilo would be very exciting. It's really hard to disagree with that. Paul McGarrigle here as well just says Kyle Cifuentes news. Unfortunately, don't know any more than what you guys know. But I mean, he's a guy that I'm really, really excited to see, and I really hope he does come to Rangers. By all accounts, I think he had was it their last game or something like that last night?
One more, I think.
They got one more, so yeah, we'll see. But I was going to finish it there, and I'm putting you both on the spot here. I'll come to you first, Gus, on this, but Paul McGarrigle asked a final really good question, and he says, Kyle, say we get Cifuentes and Danilo in, what's your team for the Champions League qualifiers? So, Gus, I'll let you start. And by the way, the last time I was asked a question like this in a podcast without any preparation, I think I named about 14 players. So just count them. All right, just make sure you only name 11. All right.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll go with Butland, obviously, in goal. Back four of Tavernier, Goldson, Souttar, and Yilmaz. And then a midfield three of Raskin, Cifuentes, and Ryan Jack. And then
interesting.
Cantwell as a number 10. And then the front two will be Dessers and either one of Danilo, Sima, or Lammers.
I think that's a very good lineup. Let us know in the comments if you agree with that, guys. And Ben, I'll ask the exact same question to you. Have you got a very similar team there?
Yeah, it's quite similar. It depends on who we get in the opponents and whether we're talking home or the away. But same back four. And then I would go, if we're looking at a more attacking, I would play Cantwell in the midfield with Raskin, and then I'm torn between these front players. But I would probably like to see Lammers playing in sort of number 10, and I would like to see. I'm trying to make sure I've got enough players in here, but I would like to see Danilo and Dessers playing up front together. And I'm trying to work out. I'm a one short.
Well, let's just say you are for argument's sake. You can pick one more. I'm never going to say no to anybody putting 12 players on the pitch for Rangers.
Maybe we'd get Ryan Jack in there as well.
Yeah, so it's so funny you've said that because he was the last one that I was not sure whether or not I'd play, but I've went for Jack in there as well. I've gone Butland in goal, Tav, Souttar, Davies, Yilmaz, Raskin sort of sitting, protecting the back four. Then I've gone for or maybe Jack sitting to protect the back four. I don't know. Maybe Raskin a bit for the forward with Cantwell. But my front three, I've gone for Dessers through the middle and Lammers and Sima as the sort of wide 10 as they've been described before. RSC72 here says Butland, Tav, Souttar, Trusty Panzo, Yilmaz, Raskin, Cifuentes, Jack, Cantwell, Danilo, Dessers. That's a tasty lineup if we sign some of those players. In Butland, Tav, Balogun, Souttar, Ridvan, Cifuentes, Raskin, Cantwell, Sima, Danilo, and Dessers. So yeah, if that was the team that we had for the Champions League qualifiers, I would be very, very, very happy with that. But look, guys, that just about wraps it up. We've just gone over the hour there. Plenty to talk about as always. If you haven't already, just remember, give us a like and subscribe in all the usual channels. I don't know if that's been mentioned on a podcast yet, but we are now on TikTok, whatever that is. But I know that some of the guys have been doing really, really, really good videos on that. I mean, so much so that even I've watched a couple. So go and check that out. Follow us, and This Is Ibrox at TikTok if you haven't already. But just want to say thank you to both my guests. Thought it was a really good pod from yourself tonight, Gus. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. Good to be back on.
That's it. And Ben, it's back to dad duty for yourself. Thank you for taking a bit of time out of your busy schedule for joining us on this one.
Oh, cheers. Enjoyed it. Good to be back. Get the first one done.
That's good. Right, so we'll be back with you all on Sunday. I said I'm not quite sure who's on or is hosting that pod, but go check it out. It'll be 8 o'clock on the This Is Ibrox YouTube channel. So take care, guys, and we'll see you all then.